Maine Democratic Senate candidate Graham Platner is holding a campaign rally tonight. This after a week filled with what can only be described for his campaign as troubling allegations. He is trying to steady his campaign after the New York Times late yesterday reported that several former girlfriends accused Platner of quote unquote unsettling, that's the word, behavior. Platner said any allegations of physical misconduct are quote politically motivated. Our Taurean Small joins me now from Capitol Hill. Taurean, what are we hearing from those either aligned, meaning having endorsed the Platner campaign, or just Democrats in general, best as you can tell?
Well, what's interesting, Bernie Sanders was a pretty big supporter of Platner, came out with an endorsement and really rallied behind him being the tie to turn, or this turning the scales of the balance of power here in the Senate, believing that he's just that great of a candidate for Democrats. The problem, though, is this week he's been pretty mum on actually speaking out about these controversies. We pressed him yesterday when he was on the Hill, and he said, "Not now, guys." He was pretty much dodging us. Elizabeth Warren is another person I should bring up because she also was pretty supportive of him earlier in the week when talking about his previous sexting scandals. She said that the problem that she faces when it comes to a candidate like this is the net positive he would be in pushing progressive agenda on the Hill, making the choice between Collins and him and not necessarily him as a candidate. But we also know that there are other unapologetic Democrats that are still backing him. Ro Khanna, the U.S. congressman, is with him tonight at a press or the first Get Out the Vote event that he's doing for the campaign. But what appears to be this redemption arc that the Platner campaign is taking on now has made him show at least an accountable side to the swath of controversies he's been riddled with since jumping in this race.
And Taurean, as I understand it, basically Graham Platner says, I was a troubled person who had several tours of duty. I did a lot of things I regret and I'm apologetic for, but I'm different now. I'm leading a progressive campaign now, and that's where he wants everyone to focus their attention. But inevitably in politics, voters get to decide on what issues they will focus more on. And he's got this problem now with character questions, right?
Yeah, and that's what I found most instructive about this conversation he had with MS Now yesterday. He pretty much laid out exactly how you did, that he made mistakes. That's something that he's battling with internally, but he's also come to terms with his wife. She came out with a statement of her own saying that, you know, she's sticking by her husband on this matter. But what I found interesting is the fact that he said that there could be other controversies that come out. He said people will undoubtedly dig. He knows what he's signing up for, jumping into politics. But ultimately, though, Democrats are faced with this dilemma that they have this really strong candidate. He was a strong fundraiser for the seat that is particularly vulnerable. That could cost them now because of this, again, just monsoon of controversies that's been plaguing his campaign.
Taurean Small on Capitol Hill, thank you. I'm happy to welcome to the program Alex Seitz-Wald. He joins me. He is the deputy editor for the Maine newspaper Midcoast Villager. It's great to have you with us. Give my audience a sense of how best you can tell this is playing in Maine in real time.
Yeah, Major, and thanks for having me. My newspaper, the Midcoast Villager, midcoastvillager.com, we have a cafe under our newsroom in downtown Camden. And every Friday morning, we hold a kind of open office hours where anybody can come in and talk to editors about what's going on in their communities. I did it this morning. And of course, the Platner news was the talk of the day. And there were 4 women there who they had read the story. They said they found the allegations gross. They believed them. They didn't dismiss it as, you know, fake news or anything. One used the word disappointed. I talked to another voter who said it was heartbreaking to learn this about Platner. But all 4 of them said they were going to still stick with him and vote for Platner. One of them was about to leave and go vote early for him at her polling place. They feel like the stakes are just so high with Susan Collins up for re-election. They think this is, you know, one of their best, if only, chances to get rid of her. Control of the Senate, the Supreme Court at stake. So they're not happy about this, but they feel stuck with him. There is a provision under Maine state law where if he drops out by July 13th, the Democratic Party could theoretically replace him, but there's no indication that he's going to drop out. And everybody that I've talked to who is supporting him worries that that would just create a whole new can of worms and chaos in trying to fill the spot. So, partisanship is a very powerful force in American politics.
And Janet Mills is the sitting governor of Maine. She was a candidate. She's still on the ballot, but has suspended her campaign. Has any of this, based on what you can tell, either conversation anecdotally or journalistically, led anyone to reconsider Janet Mills, even though she's not actively campaigning?
Yeah, I was also at a party last night where this was the big topic of conversation again. Also, when I come in the room, everybody wants to talk about politics. But I talked to a couple of people who are going to vote for Janet Mills on Tuesday. They were not planning to ahead of time, and they don't actually really think she should be senator, but they're going to vote for her to kind of send a message about their discomfort with Platner as the nominee. So I think it's going to be really interesting to watch those numbers on Tuesday. I don't really think she has a real shot of actually winning. And she put out another statement saying, no, I'm not actually running again. And she was not doing very well when she was in the race to begin with. There's another candidate who's kind of a very unknown, underfunded guy. But then that's kind of it. And we're on to November. So if you're a Democrat, if you're somebody who cares about the Supreme Court or any of the stuff, you put in this very uncomfortable situation. And I think some of these voters, even if they pull the lever for him, they resent that they have to. We actually polled our readers too. One of our readers said, "I feel sickened that I have to vote for him." So that's the position that he's now put a lot of these Democrats in. And they also, I've heard uniformly, a lot of discomfort with what he's done to his wife, who has been dragged into the middle of this. She's from one town over from where I am. A lot of people here know her personally. And, there's a long way to go, but it's going to make people very uncomfortable, though a vote that's uncomfortable counts just as much as an enthusiastic vote, as you know.
Of course it does. Alex, it was assumed 3 weeks ago, and there was some polling data to underscore this, that Graham Platner had a lead, maybe 4 points, maybe 6 points, but some kind of measurable outside the margin of error lead over Susan Collins, the incumbent seeking a fifth term. Tony Fabrizio, pollster for President Trump, put out a memo today saying that lead has now vanished. Is that consistent with what you are learning in Maine yourself?
Yeah, there was a poll from the University of New Hampshire a few weeks ago before the sexting scandal that had Graham Platner up 9 points over Susan Collins. I never believed that. I think this race was close from the beginning. I think what a lot of people from outside the state miss is that Susan Collins is a very powerful, very effective politician. She has won when the odds are stacked against her in 2020. Something like 50,000 people voted for Joe Biden at the top of the ticket and then voted for Susan Collins further down the ticket. So she has proven, by the way, her Democratic opponent that year outspent her 2-1 and still lost by 9 percentage points. So I kind of went into this before Platner, before Mills, thinking that Collins is the favorite. And I still think that you have to assume that she is marginally ahead or at least tied with any Democrat before you even get to these scandals. And now, it only takes a few dozen thousand votes of people who were going to vote for Platner but would now vote for Collins to potentially tip it back in her favor.
Alex Seitz-Wald, I appreciate it. Maine is a beautiful place this time of year, but audio connections can sometimes be problematic. I appreciate your time. Thank you.